If there's one thing I love doing, it's replaying random games that I mildly enjoyed a decade ago to see if they are better or worse than I remember them being. In today's episode of Random Things I've Replayed for No Reason, we're going to be looking at Tomb Raider 2013. It's wild going back to this game now. It's filled with a lot of stuff we hated at the time that feels quite nostalgic 12 years later. A gritty reboot, quick time events, and a lot of very dramatic slow motion explosions. But underneath all the cinematic chaos, there is a game that's still plenty fun to explore, even if it can't quite hide its age in a few areas. So let's jump in, but before we do that, if you do end up enjoying the video, then please consider subscribing as we are trying to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But enough of that nonsense, let's get started with the world and the exploration. So, Tomb Raider 2013 absolutely nails a couple things, and mainly they are the world, the exploration, and that feeling of being stranded somewhere mysterious and dangerous that's also kind of cool. Even in 2025, the island of Yamatai still feels like a compelling place to get lost in. It's not open world in the modern Ubisoft checklist sense, but it feels open enough. You're constantly moving through the story, but you're also circling back, unlocking new paths, revisiting older areas with new tools, and stumbling across things you definitely missed the first time. There's this layered design where everything's interconnected, and that loop of discover, upgrade, return still holds up. It's not too visually appealing, it's smartly built though. You'll come across areas you can't access yet, maybe a high ledge or a metal barricade, and in the moment it's just frustrating enough to remember it later. When you finally return with the rope arrows or shotgun, it's satisfying in that sort of I knew there was something there kind of way. Traversal plays a huge role in making all of this work as well. Lara's movement is smooth, but there's still some weight to it. She slips, she stumbles, she grunts, and it adds to the tension. Climbing never feels like a free pass to safety. Even in 2025, there's that tiny part of your brain that wonders if the ledge is going to collapse, and a lot of the time, yes it does. They heavily rely on the thing you're standing on broke cliche. What I love about the traversal is that it walks a nice line between being cinematic and interactive. You are obviously actively involved, but you're also getting these great camera angles and little touches. Lara will shield her eyes from the sun, she will react to the environment, and these details go a long way in helping you feel immersed. Now let's talk about the tombs, because despite the title, this is a Tomb Raider game, there aren't actually that many tombs in this game that you need to see. The majority of them are optional, which is really funny, considering they are some of the best parts of the game. Each tomb is like a short puzzle playground, usually built around a single mechanic or maybe two. You might have some counterweights, some swinging platforms, some wind and water physics-based puzzles. They're bite-sized but satisfying, and they break up the pacing in a really nice way, and I wish a lot more of them were mandatory. Even now, in a world where puzzle platformers are a bit everywhere, these tombs are a reminder of how fun it is to just figure something out. You step inside, you get to know what's going on, you see the things, you look at the things, you interact with the things, no enemies, no timers, just you and a puzzle. And as somebody that doesn't even really like puzzles that much, I find it quite refreshing. And then BAM! A set piece happens. And say what you will about the overuse of QuickTime events back in the day, but Tomb Raider 2013 goes all in on its action moments. There are burning buildings collapsing, makeshift zipline escapes, bridges exploding, and all of these moments are just complete pure chaos, in the best way. They're loud, they're dramatic, they're over the top, but they break up the quieter exploration beats and give the game this rollercoaster rhythm that still works surprisingly well in my opinion. And look, not every set piece will always hit perfectly. Some feel a little bit too scripted. Some are just run forward and hope you don't miss the jump. But they do help Lara's journey feel like it's escalating. You feel like she's surviving by the skin of her teeth, even though it's blindingly obvious, at least looking back now, that the game has completely got your back. What's maybe most impressive about the exploration, the traversal and the puzzles is that they all blend together into something that feels really cohesive. 12 years later, it still pulls that off really well. Even if I did fall off a few ledges I definitely shouldn't have done. Okay, now we're going to talk about the combat, because there is quite a lot of it, and to be fair, the combat in this game I don't actually think is bad. In fact, when it's working, I find it pretty fun. The mechanics are simple, they are responsive, and they are very easy to get into. There's a nice snap to aiming and shooting. I think the weapons have a decent amount of kick to them. The bow in particular is brilliant, it's quiet, it's incredibly effective. There is something about landing a headshot with a bow in a game that just always feels fun, and in Tomb Raider 2013 that is definitely still the case. You've got a decent range of weapons to play with too. You've got the bows, the pistols, the shotguns, the rifles, plus other upgrades that will slowly turn them into absolute wrecking machines. It's hardly the most expansive weapon customization, but there's enough here to make you feel like you're building a stronger and more capable Lara as the game progresses. And then there's the stealth. There are moments where the game lets you be sneaky, picking off enemies from cover, shooting things on the ceiling to land on them, silently taking someone down from above. But more often than not, things will eventually explode into chaos, which kind of fits the vibe of what this game was going for. Because if there's one thing Tomb Raider 2013 does really well with its combat, it's the tone. It sells that feeling of desperation really well. Lara isn't some trained assassin when she washes up on the island, she's just trying to survive. The combat feels raw and panicked earlier on, you're scrambling around, you're just using whatever you can find, and there's this sense that Lara's figuring it out at the same time as you. The first time you get into a real firefight, it's messy, it's intense. The game wants you to feel that level of discomfort. Lara hesitates, Lara reacts, the violence feels really personal, and the game uses that to underscore her growth from survivor to full-on action hero. And here is the thing, after a while, the combat starts to lose that emotional weight. You go from, oh god, I hope I make it through this, to, okay, how many of them is there this time? The encounters really start piling up. You'll finish one, you'll walk 5 steps, you'll do a couple jumps, and then bang, here's more enemies just throwing molotovs at you. It's not that these mechanics stop working, it's that there's too much of it. You'll be enjoying a tense exploration sequence or solving a puzzle, and the game will suddenly slam the brakes to funnel you into yet another shootout. And by hour 6 or 7, which isn't that long into the game, that starts to feel like it's getting in the way of everything the game is doing well elsewhere. It's almost like the combat is trying to convince you that it needs more combat than it really does. But personally, I think Tomb Raider is at its best when it slows down, when it lets you soak in the environment, sneak past your enemies, or solve a puzzle at your own pace. Those moments hit harder than mowing down another group of mercenaries. So yeah, the combat works, it's solid, it's fun, it gets the job done. But after a while, you kind of wish the game trusted its other strengths a bit more, because there's a great action adventure here which sometimes gets a little bit buried under all of the gunfire. And look, they absolutely knew this, because the subsequent entries do very much scale back the amount of combat. The third game, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, absolutely gutted the amount of combat encounters in that game, and ironically, I actually wish Shadows had a bit more, but we're not talking about Shadows today, maybe one day. So let's quickly wrap things up now by talking about the story, and this is where Tomb Raider 2013 gets a little more uneven. There is ambition here. You can tell that the writers wanted to tell a serious emotional origin story for Lara Croft. It's got all the right ingredients, it's got Lara Croft thrust into danger, a mysterious island shrouded in myth, a stranded crew of companions, and a cult of very angry men who seem to really like fire. And for the most part, it works. The story moves at a good pace, the stakes escalate naturally, and there are a few twists that, while not mind-blowing, do keep you a bit curious. You're always chasing after someone or something, whether it's your kidnapped friends, the next clue to getting off the island, or the answer to what the hell is going on this island. But here's the thing. The game definitely thinks it's saying something deeper than it actually is. There are big dramatic moments, characters yelling about sacrifice and destiny, emotional speeches, desperate pleas over walkie-talkies, but most of it doesn't hit quite as hard as the game clearly wants it to. It's not necessarily terrible writing, it just feels like the game is reaching for gravitas without fully earning it. Where the story does succeed is in creating a sense of constant movement. You always feel like you're working towards something. Whether or not you're emotionally invested in the characters or the plot, you are still going to want to push forward just to see where it all goes. It's basically some sort of survival thriller with some ancient mysticism sprinkled on top. And of course, Lara herself is obviously the best part. She carries the whole thing. This version of Lara is vulnerable, determined, and constantly adapting. You believe in her growth over the course of the game. She goes from someone who's clearly in over her head to someone who's making impossible decisions and pushing through fear, injury, and grief in order to survive. She reacts to things in a very human way. She's not a superhero, at least not yet, and that makes her super easy to connect with. Even if the writing around her gets a little melodramatic at times, the performance is strong enough to sell it. Now the rest of the cast, not quite as fleshed out. You've got a whole group of supporting characters, but most of them feel like they're just there to check a box. You've got the brave guy, the angry guy, the one who betrays everybody. They all have their own little arcs, but none of them really stick. I find it really strange coming back to this game that Jonah ends up becoming a main character in this rebooted series, because he's just such a nothing character in this game in particular. It's kind of like all these characters exist to move the plot forward rather than feel like they actually exist. You'll get a scene where someone sacrifices themselves or makes a big emotional choice, and yeah, it's fine, you don't like seeing the good guys die, but you probably won't remember their name by the time the game ends. Still, there's a couple interesting dynamics going on, but I don't feel like the story did anything particularly interesting. In the end, the story isn't exactly profound, but I do think it is effective. It gives you a reason to keep going, even if you're mostly there for the climbing, for the puzzles, and for the occasional massive storm conjured by ancient magic. And that kind of sums up Tomb Raider 2013 in a nutshell. It's dramatic, it's ambitious, and sometimes it takes itself a little bit too seriously. But it's still a really solid ride. Lara holds it all together, and even if the story doesn't quite deliver on its bigger emotional beats, it's entertaining enough to pull you through the chaos. So if you've had Tomb Raider 2013 sitting in the back of your backlog, or if you're just curious to see how a gritty reboot from 2013 holds up in 2025, it's worth diving back in. Just be ready for a few too many gunfights between all the good stuff. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. I hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, as it really does help me out. And if you want to see more videos from me, then please make sure to subscribe. Remember, we are trying to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you could just press that little subscribe button, it would mean the world to me. I upload at least one video a week, but for now that is all. Have a nice day, and goodbye.